So we're on page 137. We're about 10 lines from the top. The line begins with the words V'zehu Menoira. And just to recap briefly, the Rebbe is explaining here the fourth item that the Isha Shunamis instructed to be put into the room that she made for the holy person that was her visitor. And this was a menorah, a candelabra. And the Rebbe explains to us the difference between Shmoneh Esrei. The Zohar HaKadosh says that this refers to Shmoneh Esrei, the service of Shmoneh Esrei, as the fourth method of tikkun, of correcting the Shchinta Begalus and the Shchina in Galus. And he explained that the idea of Shmoneh Esrei is Tleisa. It's a prayer of quietness, of silence, compared to the previous parts of davening where there's more excitement, regesh. And this opens up for us the whole idea of, I didn't say this yesterday, I'm adding this now, dveikus versus hispilus. There are two words that we throw around, and even there are nigunim songs made about them, dveikus, dveikut, and hispilus. And in various writings of Hasidic masters, they have different meanings. So,
Rabbi.
yes?
Rabbi, but I remember in learning Chaim Berlin, there is also an Inyan by the Litvishes, by the Litvaks of Dveikus. Yeah. Not as Pilus, but Dveikus.
Right.
There is something about it.
Yes, so...
I remember learning.
Right, but as I was saying a moment ago, that the meaning in let's say the Litvak world of Dveikus is very different than the meaning of Dveikus in the Hasidic world, and in the Hasidic world itself, the way Chabad sees it is very different than the way the Hasidim see it. I don't want it. Requires really a class for itself. So some other time, hopefully, we'll do that. But just briefly, Dveikus doesn't mean just closing your eyes and just going like this and and pretending you're somewhere else. That is, excuse the expression, foolishness. A lot of foolishness. Dveikus means that something has, like I always use the words, something has swallowed you, something has absorbed you, where the you is no longer there. And that's what the Rebbe says here in the Maimer. During Shmoneh Esrei, Amida, we're totally bottled. We're totally annulled to God. And that's why we're standing and not sitting. The position of Shema, which is unbelievable, but nevertheless, it's a sitting position. The sitting position means they're settling, and if they're settling, you're in a settled place. If you're in a settled place, there is a you who's settled. So yes, you're calm, and you're miyushav, right? The word in Hebrew, miyushav, right? Settled, calm, relaxed, right? It's great, but nevertheless, there's still some ego, some yesh. What he explained to us here, Shmoneh Esrei, is the position of the person in his daily davening where the yesh is bottled b'mitziut. The entire concept of an I, of an ego, of a yesh doesn't exist. Let me explain this for another moment, Avram. There's a difference between saying there is a yesh and the yesh is nullified to God. That's different than saying there is no yesh. How could there be there's no yesh? I touch the table, I look out the window, what do you mean there's no yesh? So Chassidus explains that a person can reach a point where everything that he touches and sees and feels and hears are all a God experience. They come to a place where they see it as a God experience. So it's not an I experience, it's not a yesh experience, it's a God experience. And a person who lives that way is not frazzled by the highs and lows, by the curveballs, sliders, or forkballs. It doesn't make a difference. You want to throw this pitch?
What about a knuckleball, Rabbi?
Okay, Yeah, could you turn your noodle off, a knuckleball? We'll add knuckleball. Anyway, in other words, all the highs and lows and the different types of issues that we experience don't frazzle him. It's just another step in the expression of God. I mean, now you understand that's someone who's really a baldarga. Someone who's really worked out their emunah and the betochen, that nothing frazzles them. That's we say in Yiddish, an oiske arbeiter Yid, a refined Jew. But the Rebbe says that during Shmon Esrei, every day, we get a chance to experience that. And therefore, I want to add another point. That's why we have the 18, 19 brachas of the Amida, right? Because each one is a different experience. One is Geula and one is Parnasa. One is health and one is Tshuva, right? So in other words, what we're saying is like, look, until Shemon Esrei, I was a Tshuva Jew. I emphasize Tshuva. Another person says, throughout my life, I enjoyed Simcha. I was happy and I made other people be happy. Another experience is refuah. I went around to visit nursing homes and hospitals and old age homes, and I brought people, simcha. I emphasize, everyone has a different experience. Now that's wonderful, except when you have to go out of the box of your experience. If you're a Geula Jew and you have to experience health, it's very frazzling because you're not used to it. You're uncomfortable. You're scared. Fear. When we made our Chabad house in Marin County, it was all fear that they opposed. They opposed us because of fear. The fear of the unknown. Who are these people walking with beards and yarmulkes in 90 degrees and they don't, play ball on Shabbos. They don't come to the swim meets. Who are they? They must be up to something. The fear of the unknown. Someone who's a Geula Jew, to experience another type of Jew, it's very uncomfortable. It's very fearful because you're stuck to being Geula. You're stuck to your box. It's a holy box, but still, it's your box. That's what I mean. However, that's why during Shemon Esrei we say all the 18, 19 blessings. Because at that time we've reached a place where we've left our box. It's no longer my request. I need this, I need that. God, you want me? For me to function, I need to be paid. I need to be healthy. I need to be happy. You don't want to do that? No problem. I'm still serving you. In other words, Shemon Esrei includes all the different types of life's challenges, specifically because we can all accomplish them and succeed because we're in a position of Shemon Esrei. And what is the position of Shemon Esrei? The Amida, bittul b'metzias. The eye is out. And only if the eye is out can we then experience all different 18, 19 different types of experiences. If the eye is not out, you're basically stuck to 1, 2, 3, and the rest you can't fathom, you can't handle. They get you upset, they make you nervous, and you're frazzled. And I think this is a very practical thing that you could think about when you daven Shemon Esrei. Especially when you prepare yourself. You know that one line between Goal Yisrael, the blessing, and Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu v'Kei Avosenu, right, the bracha. There's one line, a short little line, and it's very powerful and important. Hashem Svasai Tiftach. God, open my lips. You see? That line sets the tone for Shemon Esrei. Not, I will open my lips. First it begins, God, Hashem. That's the first thing. Right now, I'm entering the space of God, Ad Hashem. Svasai, my lips, tiftach. Open. If you want me to pray and you want me to be yours and to do things for you, open my lips. Ufi, and my mouth, Yagid, will relate, will tell Tehilosecha, your praises. So I'll do all that on the condition, one condition, Hashem. So you see, Moshe, that the opening line of the Shmon Esrei is the key to the Shmon Esrei. When Reb Mendel Futterfass and Reb Shmuel David Reitschik were in my house in 1988 for a night, I told you that story. So Rabbi Reitschik went to my wall. We didn't have a minyan during the week at that time yet. We didn't have one. So we davened in my house at my table, all three of us. So Rabbi Reitschik got up to daven Shmon Esrei, and I see him going back 3 steps and going forward towards the wall. And I happened to be observing him at the time, and I don't see him kneeling. You know, you're supposed to go Baruch Atah Hashem, right? There's 3 positions, right? The bowing of the head, the kneeling of the legs, and then the upright position. When you say Hashem, you're supposed to be in the upright position. Are you familiar with this? This is brought in halacha. So I was expecting him, as soon as he went forward 3 steps to the wall, to do it. 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. I like, what's going on here? Did you fall asleep? And then finally, I saw him do the Baruch Atah Hashem positions. Also not with, protrusion and, being ostentatious, in a humble, refined way. And what I realized is that he was focusing on the opening words of Hashem Svasai Tiftach Ufi Yagid Secha, because at that time, you don't begin your position of bowing and kneeling. Right? That's what he was doing in those 20, 30 seconds. And I thought a lot about this, and this is what I'm sharing with you now, years later. I never asked him this, but I have it on a video that I made about Reb Mendel Futterfass, and you can see over there, I think, now I'm thinking about it, maybe I didn't include it. I have it in my files. I have the full video. There I put about 38, 40 minutes. I believe I included that too, and if you take a good look, you'll see that he goes to the wall, and then he's not doing it. He's not doing the bowing and the kneeling. The point is that Hashem Svasai Tiftach is a very important part of davening and meditation to set the tone for Shmon Esrei. You see? And this is the way a Jew who takes his davening seriously davens. You don't need to shake and make with your body movements and close your eyes and go up and down and scream and jump and laugh. Just say Hashem Svasai Tiftach with kavanah and really focus on the words, and you're going into a meditative state of sorts. So the Rebbe said over here that this is the avodah of Shmon Esrei. So Shmon Esrei, Amida, is a very, very powerful tefillah, and it's the high point of davening. Generally, the Holy Zohar says there's 4 rungs to the ladder of davening. There's the brachas, then there's psuki de zimra, the brachas and hoidu, and then there's psuki de zimra. Actually, the Zohar I think starts with hoidu. Then there's psuki de zimra, and then there's birchas krishma and shma, and then there's or maybe it divides it between psuki de zimra, birchas krishma, krishma, and amida. And each one is climbing up the ladder. So what's the ultimate? What's the high? The high is the Shmon Esrei. And that's why, Yonason, the halacha is that even if there's a snake around you and things like that, you shouldn't make an interruption. What's the spiritual significance and reason for that? And this is one of the explanations, because The snake can only bother you if you're here. But if you've been taken elsewhere because the Shemona Esrei experience has absorbed you, the snake is no snake and the foot is no foot. Go tell the average person that, right? But let's talk about it in our life. Forget about a snake. The meatballs are no meatballs. The market is no market. The worries are no worries. You're with Hashem now. What are you worried about? What are you worried about? You have an opportunity to be with God, to allow yourself to be taken in by God. Hashem is the best, is the nicest, is the greatest. Of course he's going to take care of you. What are you worried about? Oh, the answer is, I'm not there yet. So that's why we daven Shemona Esrei. Okay, so this is a very important, it came out better than I thought. I didn't think of saying everything I said this morning. But really, this is the avodah of the Amida. Okay, let's continue now. 10 lines from the top on page 137. This is why the candelabra, the Menorah, is called in the Zohar HaKadosh, the Holy Zohar, the Shemona Esrei. By the Menorah it says, Maaseh HaMenorah. It says the work of the Menorah. That's a quote from the Torah. Through action, good action, in actuality, good activity in actuality, one will reach the plane and domain called Menorah. The intent is the when a person does good for another person. The Kabbalah soil accepting the yoke dafke. You help the person. This is what I said during the Fabrengen, right? Abbas Yisrael, bottom line. No philosophies, no arguments, no positions. Go out and help another Yid. Later you'll think about whether you were genuine or not, whether you were real or not. And when you say Krish Michel at night, as we learned in the beginning of the Maimon, you'll cry for being false and a faker and not having enough, and you did it for your own agenda. But bottom line is, as the Rebbe would always repeat, the Oraman Darfessen, the poor man needs to eat. What does the poor man needing to eat have to do whether you're genuine in getting him the food, whether you have an agenda? He needs to eat. The fact that you're not refined, that you have an agenda, and you're getting miles on it, okay, you got to work out those issues under your talus. But meanwhile, Yonason, the Oraman Darfessen, the other person who's impoverished in the spiritual sense or the physical sense needs to eat, needs to have the spiritual food. Let's go weiter. That's how you reach the highest level, is action, Abbas Yisrael. That's what the Rebbe says right here. And that is the Menorah. That causes things to be bright. Light. If it says, this is the act of the Menorah. It should be carved out of gold. Ad yerecha pircha to its base. Mikshehi, from one piece of gold, you take one piece of gold and you carve out from that piece of gold the entire Menorah. Says the Alter Rebbe, who's called the great rabbi, our great rabbi Rabbeinu HaGodol, may his soul be in Eden, in Gan Eden, in paradise. If someone wants to leave the position of bad, in whatever bad issue they're found, and make of himself a menorah, candelabra, yasa b'seder hazeh. This is a beautiful interpretation. Jot it down and remember it. He should do in the following order. Miksha. What does miksha mean? Shebetchila hayekva kikar ogul. First, this piece of gold was around. Umakish bekarnes lifashet evorov. He chisels away with an axe of sorts on this piece of gold, allowing the parts of the menorah to protrude. In other words, first you have to chisel away, Moshe, right? When you chisel away what you don't want, what comes out? What's left? That part that you want. So if you want a branch, you chisel around in such a way that the branch all of a sudden protrudes from the piece of gold. And when you chisel away with the axe, the upper part of the gold falls below. And the bottom part of the gold ascends upwards. Until all of the gold is now mixed together, which causes this piece of gold to lose its original shape. This is the mashal.
Tzura.
This is the mashal.
Tzura.
Yeah, the tzura, right. And this is the mashal. Now comes the nimshal, the moral. So should a person do to himself. The first thing is l'shaber hamida she is batlu mitzurosam. You have to shatter the ugly character part of the person. She is batlu mitzurosam. It should lose its shape, its form, its tzura. Right? Kemaimer bater rutzoincha mipnei rutzoinai, as it says in Pirkei Avos, know your will to the will of Hashem. Ad kan l'shoinai, until here is the language of the Rabbeinu HaGadol, the Alter Rebbe. Now the Rebbe explains. The menorah was made for one piece of gold. The kikar, the gematria rum. The word kikar equals 240 equals rum, which means exalted, which equals 240. Uvegematria, and it also is the numerical equivalent of the word mar, bitter. Hainu, hein, asmi is by zich gehoiben. This is so beautiful. As Shlomo would say, this is so beautiful. Now, if you learn this, you know why Shlomo Karlbach was a chassid of the Frierdiker Rebbe. How can you not? And he would say, "Sweet of sweet." When you hear this, it's sweet of sweet. The sweetness of sweet. Hey, look what he says. Hey, Nazmi is by Zichter Hoiben. Whether you are Moshe Ram, you're exalted, you're great. Or whether someone is broken, shattered from the physical matter, from his life, from his parnasa, etc., his health. You understand? So again, Kikar Zov, Kikar's gematria 240. 240 has two words that you spell in reversed way, either Ram or Mar. Ram means exalted, Mar means bitter. Says the Rebbe, whether you are exalted in your life, or whether you are mar, bitter and destroyed in your life, whether it's going great or it's going really not good, says the Rebbe, tzrichem blases mezem menorah. Kikar, we made a menorah out of this. So that's what I was telling you before. Don't tell me your aches and pains, and let's make a menorah out of the situation. And a menorah can be made and should be made, you understand, out of every situation, whether it's a ram situation you're in or a mar situation. And you do that by shattering, by breaking the imagery, the form and image of your emotions, your character in your battle. Put aside your feelings. Batel retzoincha, yes. You feel and you understand this is a bad situation. And Hashem has put me in, and therefore I can't function. I can't serve God. Says Pirkei Avos, Batel Ritzoincha. Annul your ratzon, annul your will to Hashem's will. Even if it looks like, it feels like very bad and very ugly and very down, mar, bitter. Shezeu tfilas mincha. Says the Rebbe, this is the tefillah of mincha. Mincha is the time when we experience that. It says in the book Seder Hayoim, but Milos tefillas mincha, ala tefillah shachar ardis, the virtue of mincha over shachar and ma'ariv. The hine tefillah shachar is the morning davening. He babayker, it's in the morning kodim shu hilach lasokah before you go to work. It's not a novelty. Right? We're not talking about people who daven 12, 1 o'clock. We're talking about people who daven in the morning. Wie is anders? The Rebbe says in Yiddish, look at these words. Wie is anders? How can it be any different? A Jew knows, you get up, you go to daven. A Jew rises in the morning, is the erste Zach, the first thing, Heulich lebeis hakneses. He goes to shul, nispal, b'tzibur, daven to minyan. So what's the big deal? What's the big deal? Tfilas Arvis, what about Ma'ariv? Next page, 138. Bo'erev, it's in the evening, Bigmar HaSokov. You finish your work, you finish being at your studio, you can't come home, you either had supper before, you're basically winding down, as we say, you've wound down. So, V'gam zeni pella, says the Rebbe, Yonason, it's not a big deal to daven Ma'ariv, to experience Ma'ariv. Shemaspal azay is der derech harogel fun kolech l'Yisrael. This is the customary way of every single Jew, to wind down and give thanks to Hashem through the prayer of Ma'ariv in the evening. Aval tfilas mincha, but mincha, she be emtza hayoim, which is the middle of the day. Kasher odim. Torah be asaka, when a person is busy, like you guys, in the middle at 2:40 in the afternoon, when you're in the middle of doing your work at the studio or whatever other work you're doing, you have to stop and put on the screen. You don't have to, you choose to do that and to learn. That's not easy. And I can tell you, here we have a meeting at 1:40, and I'm in the middle of writing. I don't want to leave. I'm in the middle of an idea. And so I just stop and I run out. I mean, just saying, the idea, in the middle of the day, it doesn't mean middle of the day. The mincha tefillah is such that's in the middle of the day, right? From chatzos, after chatzos till the shkia, whatever. Those are the working hours. So to leave that, the Rebbe says, a person is occupied and busy with his work. And for many people, they're found in the markets. They're in the Ramat Gan Diamond Exchange, and they're in Manhattan, and they're here, and they're there. People are hustling and bustling, like I would stay on 5th Avenue and 47th Street and offer people to put on tefillin in the 1970s, and thousands of people were running back and forth, and it was unbelievable. They're in the market. They're outside. Oy, hu b'nesiyah. Look at this, Moshe. You're traveling. You're going from Eretz Yisrael to Chicago to New York. How are you going to do mincha? You're b'nesiyah. Or like I told you once, I was on my way back from, I guess, with the Catskills, and the sun's going down, and as far as I didn't have yet a place, and Muncie was still far. What do? You're b'nesiyah. Upoines atzmai, and you put yourself aside, mikol asokov mispalil, of all of your work, and you say, stop. No. It's now time to daven. Rabbi Feller is in Professor Velvel Green's office. He says, I came here to see you. He says, I have to daven mincha, and the professor wants to throw him out. I don't see rabbis generally, and I don't have time for this. And Feller just does what he just stands up, faces the wall, puts on his gartel, and davens mincha. And inside, this velvet green is like, I can't believe this. And then he realizes, wow, this man is more committed to God than to me. That means that I'm basically all about myself, and he's about God. And that shatters his ego. And that's the beginning how he becomes about teshuvah and how he comes back to Hashem, because he finally realized there's something greater than NASA, something greater than science. It's the Eibishter. So Mincha has this energy and potency that Shachris and Arbas don't have. He avodah mitis. Look at the Rebbe's words here, Avram. Yoini, this is the true avodah. Mincha. V'zeu yisra milos tfilos al mincha al sharat tfilos, and this is the advantage that mincha has over other services to shachar. V'zeu tfilos mincha b'shebachol yoim, and this applies to every day the mincha. So the Rebbe over here, it's interesting. He speaks about the virtual Shmoneh Esrei, and then he talks about the bottom line is Avos Yisrael, and then he connects it to Mincha. He doesn't really show us the juxtaposition of all three. So I want to discuss that in Hashem in the next year, in Hashem. Chevra, yes, Yoini, you want to ask something? No.
So I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about this on Monday or Sunday next week. Maybe the emphasis is that on all the tefillas which are very important, but mincha really is the most difficult to actually do, to actualize.
That's right.
We all get up in the morning. Everybody gets up and everybody goes to sleep.
Yes.
So I mean, you get up in the morning, but like in the middle of the day, to find the time to stop everything and to learn or to daven.
That's what he says.
Real sacrifice.
That's exactly what he's saying. But the Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe, is articulating it with his beautiful words. But this line that we learned, that whether you're a Rum Jew or whether you're a Mar Jew, you have to make a menorah. This is one for life, never to forget. We should put this on our wall, in big words. Yes, Moshe.
Yeah, maybe in the next year, what you just said, Rabbi Dolphin, about whether a person's a Rum Jew or a Mar Jew. Then we can talk about that a little bit more to understand that.
Okay, good.
I would appreciate it.
Yeah, fine.
Please.
Emit Hashem. Okay, so Shabbos, what's the Pasha B'Shalach? It's Tu B'Shvat next week. So it's opportunities, great opportunities. He B'Shalach Parei, famous saying, Paro sends the Jews out, and God doesn't take them through the land of the Philistines. The Masnagdim came to Reb Nochem of Chernobyl, the father figure of the Chernobyl Hasidim, which is Skver and Tolna, Rachmas Rivkin, all those, the river, And they said, Nochem Elokim, you Nochem Chernobyl, his first name is Nochem. You're not a god. What are you making yourself, a Rebbe? What? We're all the same. There's a rabbi, there's a Malamed, a Rebbe. Nochem Elokim. That's the way they confronted Reb Nochem Chernobyl. You're not Elokim, you're not God. And what did he answer them? He retorted with a sharp line. Derech Eretz Plishtim. You Philistines have Derech Eretz for Chasidus. Why? The Plishtim, it says in Kabbalah, their particular klipa, their approach, their klipa approach is to laugh to laugh at Yiddishkeit, at Torah. So oplachen is the word in Yiddish. Right? So here, the Misnagdim were oplachen, they were laughing at Reb Nochem, at Chassidim, at Baal Shem Tov. What's this business of putting someone on a pedestal? That was their argument. And as sharp of a dialogue this is, it's relevant. And it's not about, Chassidim, Misnagdim. We have to strip it from that, classical divisiveness and find it in our life. There is the attitude and the question, why is a Chassidus and a Rebbe, what's special about it? And why do that if Orthodoxy for thousands of years didn't have that? So the first thing Reb Nochem says to them is Derech Eretz Plishtim. Have Derech Eretz. You, whoever laughs at another person's Yiddishkeit, the first thing is be quiet and have respect. And then you can ask a question with respect and we'll go into a dialogue. That's the way I see this, ordinary vort that if you go into a Hasidic shtibel anywhere, you'll hear what I said. Has anyone heard this before? No? Yonason, Velvel, did you ever hear that before? Velvel. No. Wow. Okay. For me, this is bread and butter. I grew up with this here. But like Nochem Elokim, Nochem Chernobler, student of the Maggid, the Baal Shem Tov, you're not God. Stop with this Rebbe and Chassidim. Stop it. And he answers them the next part of the pasuk, Derech Eretz Plishtim. You Philistines have Derech Eretz. Why Philistines? So literally the people, the way they say it in the community is calling the Misnagdim Plishtim. But if you look at the Kabbalah, Plishtim, the clip of Plishtim is laughing at people who laugh at Yiddishkeit. So he says, Derech Eretz Plishtim. You people who laugh at Yiddishkeit, who laugh at Chassidus, or laugh at, even if one Litvak laughs at another Litvak, you know what I'm saying? The whole idea of poo-pooing the other person's Avodas Hashem, Derech Eretz, he says, Derech Eretz, have respect, and realize that this is also an Avodas Hashem. And now, if you want to understand more, we'll dialogue. It's a very, so again, here's an example how when I was growing up, and like this is, in my DNA, it wasn't explained the way I explained it. It was kind of in a derogatory way, a dialogue between Chassidim, Misnagdim, and Misnagdim laughing at Chassidim, and Chassidim laughing at Misnagdim. But as you get older and you understand the bigger picture, it's far beyond just this kind of, narrow and maybe even silly or truth. I mean, the times when the Chassidim, Misnagdim were at each other's necks, and this was very real going back 200 years. But as the Rebbe says, that's finished. The Rebbe said there's no more Misnagdim today. They're Litvaks, Litvische, no more Misnagdim. That's finished. Any questions?
It's a great word. That's really great. Looking forward to sharing that.
It's a great word, Moshe, and it's a word that at a Fabringen, at a Kiddush with your Chevre, the Neish Kodesh, you can say a sharp word, but if you explain it, people will love it, And if someone doesn't, they have a problem, then it's their issue. If anyone, I'm sorry, tell me if I'm wrong, but if anyone can have a taina on the way I explained it and say, I'm sorry, I can understand if you don't want to repeat the fart because you're not in good company. You're not sitting with Lubavitchers drinking l'chaim or Hasidim, and you're sitting with Litvaks or others, and you're saying a sharp fart, and they're going to be very upset. I can hear that loud and clear. And I have heard it loud and clear. But when you explain it the way it was just explained, and you elaborate and articulate, then it opens up a beautiful discussion about what a Rebbe is and what Chassidus is, and why did the Baal Shem Tov come along, and what did he want, and what does it mean today. It's a whole different experience. And it comes all from the same word, from the same idea. And that's the importance, both in conversation and in writing. You know, you could, and I always say this to people. They ask me, say, "How can you write about this?" You know, because I write about some controversial issues. How can you write? I says, depends how you write. If you're coming from that, you want to jab the other person, you want to destroy the other person, you want to belittle the other person. You're right. You have no right writing it. It's lashon hara. It's gossip. It's wrong. It's meitzah shemra. But if you're coming to explain, where is this one coming from, and where is that coming? And then, I mean, Velvel, you've read, I imagine you ordered many of my books, so you must have read it. Let me ask you, do you get that feeling in my books? Because that's really what I want to leave my reader with, whether they're Lubavitcher or not. I want it to be balanced. How do you find when I write about controversial issues?
It's very nice. The problem is not that you. The problem is not how do you write. It's very nice, and I feel it's very balanced. It's said that it was accurate, so that's the problem.
A what? A what? I didn't hear. What? What?
The problem is that it occurred, so that it happened. That it happened to me. That's it said. Read this. But I feel sad is that there are still people that we have to explain it, because they try to go back 200 years and try to revive all this stuff. And that's in Germany. It's kind of daily job to speak about all these issues.
When I walk into a bookstore here, and if some people know me for my books, and they go around me like in a circle, and we start talking, and it's great. And these are people who don't philosophically agree with the Chabad Shita, but nevertheless, we feel like friends. It's something that can be and should be refined, and we need to communicate this to our children and grandchildren, because sometimes in the yeshivas today, not sometimes, and I see this both in Chabad and in Litvish yeshivas too. The right wing extremism has overtaken us. It's like, the neutrality of Moshe, Chappelle's or Shara Yosher from Far Rockaway. These are Baal Tshuva yeshivas. Reb Tuvia Goldstein's yeshiva, Diaspora Yeshiva. Yeshiva University, Reb Yitzchak Elchanan. All of these, yeshivas are, today, it's like second tier. The weaklings go there. The real men, they go to Slobodka, they go to Lubavitch, they go to Hebron, they go to Panovich, they go to Lakewood. Now, if a yeshiva has a better staff, I can understand that. But regardless, I don't want to say, I once had a meal with someone in Bet Shemesh, and the father, although he's not a card-carrying chassid, he's not a chassid, but he loves to learn the Rebbe Sichos, and he loves to know, and he learns, I assume, learn Gemara and Halacha. He's a Ben Torah. His son, I saw, and he wanted his son to meet me, so he invited me to the meal, and it was wonderful. But I could see that the son is not gravitating, and what I realized is, he learned in a particular Litvish yeshiva, a strong Litvish yeshiva. And it's the culture that, even without them saying, oh, stay away from Chabad, okay? I'm going to even grant them that. It's like, this Hasidus and Chabad in particular, it's not for you. So shut yourself down. Don't listen. Because if you will, maybe you'll hear something and you'll say, there's something beautiful about Hasidus. And this has become the culture where Baalei Tshuva, their kids and their grandkids, have become right-wing extremists in different ways. And I say the same thing for Chabad. Yesterday, my friends and I, we have a chat. I told you this yesterday. Good Yom Tov. I never was raised that way. And I called someone who was from the 60s and 70s. And I asked him, were you raised that way? And he went to the other Lubavitch yeshiva, more the Crown Heights. And he said, no. And I would have thought he would have been, he said, I never heard that. And again, he's very different than me, okay, in many philosophical, political stances. And he said, I never, this was, and he said one time at a Farbrengen in Yud Shvat, a certain older chassid came in and disturbed the whole Farbrengen, and he said, it's about the Rebbe and the Rebbe's leadership, and not about the previous Rebbe's yahrzeit. And meanwhile, the main mashpia, who was Farbrengen, got up and he left. And they were friends back in Russia. And they still were friends. But he felt he's totally out of his mind. And this chassid was known as a wild chassid. So the average Lubavitcher looked at him. You could be a great man and have Mesiras Nefesh, but this particular sheet of yours is outrageous. Yet today, in most yeshivas and in most mashpiyim and Rosh Yeshivas, that's what they talk about. And listen, if that's what grabs the Bocharim today, I'm not in that world. So who am I to say? But I'm just saying, so, the extremism and the right wing and this idea that we change the way the tradition was, it's the reality. So it's happening both in the Hasidic world, and I don't mean only Chabad, it's happening in the Hasidic world too. I'll give you an example. There are two Satmar Rebbes. The one from Kiryas Yoel, Monroe, that's, near Muncie over there. He goes to Chabad houses. Now he's, for 3 weeks, he's in Palm Springs at the Chabad house over there. Davin's there. And they built the rabbi a shul, and I'm sure they're going to build him a mikveh. 300 people come for 3 weeks, and they put in a whole kitchen, and they have a cook, a Satmar cook. It's Satmar town for 3 weeks. Going to a Chabad house? Hello, quiet. Going to a Chabad house when 40 years ago it was fire and water, it's like a miracle. Who would believe it, right? That's also a shift. That's also a right-wing shift in the good. So what I'm showing you is that the right-wing shift has a lot of good things to it. But nevertheless, we who are from a certain generation, a certain culture, and we were raised by certain people and taught by certain people, it's something, a newfound idea. It's like Hillel's not here. Freudian psychology was the psychology of the time, and for years. And then came along some others and said, no, psychoanalysis is outdated and not the approach. And I'm sure, Velvel, in medicine, in your field, I'm sure you can find a similar thing where they come up with a new idea and it kind of puts to the side the previous ideas. Okay, we verbringt Baruch Hashem again. Have a great Shabbos to everyone. Sei gesund. See everyone on Monday, Mitzvah Hashem. Bye-bye.
Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos.